Good morning, everyone. We're all aware of the recent sad passing of His Royal Highness Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. In this period of official mourning, it is entirely fitting for us to join together now in 1 minute's silence so that we may reflect upon His Royal Highness's lifetime of service to the nation and its people. Thank you for that, everyone. And welcome to the meeting. Thanks for getting along. We'll go to item 1. Apologies.
Hi, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor Alison Holmes, Councillor Carr and Councillor Testro. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, and I know Mike says he's not feeling so well at the moment, so let's hope him a speedy recovery. I have no late items. We come now to section 3, declarations of interest. Has anyone anything they would like to declare in terms of a declaration of interest? Right, so if anything comes up in the course of our discussion and you feel that's appropriate, then obviously flag it up at that time and we'll take the appropriate steps. Right, so we now go to, and I'm having to toggle between two things all the time, the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of February. I think it'd be best if we just saw those collectively as you whiz through them. Liz?
Thank you, Chair. I think, Dom, are you able to display them on screen? Is that what you're requesting, Chair? Thank you.
Yes, please. Yeah.
I'm just getting them up now.
That way, we literally are on the same page.
Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Brilliant.
So on page 1, any omissions or things will come to matters arising, if there are any. And we go to page 2. And on to page 3. And page 4. Well, I think that's a fairly comprehensive summary of the discussions that we had on that. We gave it a thorough working over, as it had been referred to as by full council, and came to a consensus that the status quo, as recommended, was the best position and the safest position. So now we move on to item 5, the apprenticeship project update, which, bearing in mind the passing of the Duke of Edinburgh, would have been something that may have raised his interest, as it's obviously something about bringing young people on, giving them an opportunity to develop themselves, face challenges, get to know more about themselves, gain confidence, self-confidence, develop social skills, all those kind of things. So, Liz, are you going to talk us through that report?
Thanks, Chair. It's my colleague Tanya Hay today who'll be taking the committee through. Thank you.
Hello, Tanya. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Thank you. And thank you for that introduction there. This is a regular update that comes to the Personnel Committee meeting, so you'll be quite familiar with the headings and the topics. So the purpose of this report is to provide an update on the apprenticeship project and the key areas of work at the moment, to provide also information on budget announcements and the government incentives that are currently in place, to provide an update on the Council's levy payments and our drawdown up until March 25th of this year, and to update the committee on the creation of the new Employment and Skills Board. So that's the purpose of this paper today. And the recommendations are to note the updates of the project, to note the associated budget announcements, to note the levy payments, and to note the update on the creation of the board. And the reasons we bring this here is to keep the Personnel Committee aware of our current position and where we are with the project and the programme. So that's the purpose of the paper today. Our first supporting information is just an update around the COVID impact on the actual delivery of our programmes. We've started on the roadmap out of lockdown. Several of our training providers are going to be renewing their training delivery models, and we actually had emails yesterday from our universities saying that they are looking to put their face-to-face delivery back in from the 17th of May. So that is quite a breaking news that they are looking to move forward to that. Some of our other training providers, we've had mixed responses. Now that they have invested in the infrastructure and IT infrastructure that they have, they're changing what their new normal may look like. So some of our training providers are not intending to go back to fully face-to-face delivery and will continue with virtual classes because they've found that very successful. And as I've mentioned, some will be going back to face-to-face. The larger facilities will be going back face-to-face, particularly Derby University, Derby College. They are looking to go back face-to-face. So we are monitoring this situation because it's raised a few concerns around continuing with virtual delivery, particularly with the younger element of our apprentices who need more support. So we are monitoring that quite closely to ensure that those apprentices get the support that they require to ensure they have quality learning. So that's where we are with the COVID impact at the moment and where we are with coming out of the roadmap. Moving on to the Management and Leadership Programme, this continues to be very successful. We are really pleased with how this programme is moving forward. We've had several more new starts in January of this year, and there are signs that, very encouraging signs that we're going to be getting some high grades from the next cohort of completers. So all the signs are looking very good and very positive. That remains one of our great successes. We have also had, again on the positive, colleagues who have had to take breaks in learning due to COVID impact on their workload are now feeling able to return to their programmes to complete the programmes. So again, that's a very positive step forward. And we are also now receiving expressions of interest for the next intake, which will be September of this year, 2021. So continuing to work in partnership with Derby University and exploring other universities where that's required. But yes, so we're very proud of that programme and very happy to say it continues very successfully. More sort of on the procurement side of our contracts, we are working quite closely at the moment with legal services, information governance and procurement to put in place new contracts and new data sharing agreements with several different training providers. And as you can imagine, when we're dealing with a lot of services and external legal representatives. It is quite complex, but those negotiations are moving forward quite positively, and we're hoping to have all of those contracts in place by the early summertime. So again, moving forward quite positively there. Budget announcements and government incentives. You're probably aware. You may be aware of the government announcements. As part of the spending review that was announced in December, the government had previously confirmed that 2.5 billion was going to be invested to support the development of apprenticeships and further improvements. And also plans to move forward levy transfer matching services. So as part of those announcements, the Chancellor of the Exchequer announced in the budget that the apprenticeship incentive payments, which will support organisations to bring new apprentices into their businesses, has been increased to £3,000 per apprentice, regardless of age, and it has been extended until September 2021. So, and this will be paid in addition to the existing incentive that's in place for 16 to 18-year-olds. So that's and that fund can be used for anything to support that apprentice. So that's quite a sum of money that employers can get for each new start apprentice that they take on between now and September. There's also the Flexi Job scheme that's coming in. Now this, it may not really be focused at local authorities as much and public sector as much. This is more targeted around a migrating workforce, and it's aimed at so people that move around in their job roles. So we're looking at the like television industry, film industry, construction industry, where people have multiple jobs. They can start an apprenticeship and take that apprenticeship with them along with to other employers. And that's it. There may be potential for us to use that within our care element, but really that's not so focused at local authorities and the public sector, that initiative. But the expansion of traineeships is, and there's an extra 126 million there. And hoping to create another 40,000 traineeships between now and 2022. And this is where the again younger end of the job market may need further support. They may not quite be in the right place to undertake apprenticeships at the time. They may need further support and further training to get them ready for the job market. So these are sort of to support younger people into the job market and get them ready to undertake further trainings such as apprenticeships. So those are the three incentives that are in place. Also, you may have heard of the Kickstart scheme. And this is a job placement scheme, 6-month scheme that is aimed at young people who are currently on universal credit and are at risk of long-term unemployment. And again, this is a similar scheme to the traineeships. So this is where an organisation would offer up a placement to a 16 to 24-year-old. The government pay the salary, national minimum wage, for 25 hours a week. And the organisation also gets a payment of £1,500 to support with the job placement, because the predominant element there is there must be a lot of training given to the candidate to support them again to get ready for the workplace. So this is again an initiative that's been aimed at the younger end of the market, job market, to support them into the workplace and potentially go on to jobs within that the organisation they are placed with, including potential apprenticeships. So those are some really good schemes. The Derby Employment Hub are promoting these incentives to our local employers and to our external partners. They are doing that promotion piece. Also, council officers are encouraging our managers to take as much advantage of these incentives as we possibly can, and exploring the job placements as well, and recruiting new starts where it's appropriate to do so at this time. What I will say is I've been speaking to the council officer who's leading on the Kickstart pilot, and at the moment we are in dialogue with the DWP. There is a backlog of 300 potential candidates that they are processing at the moment, and once that process has been put forward, we are hoping to take a number of Kickstart placements on. We have a number of managers who are interested in that once the DWP have processed those candidates for us. So again, that's quite a positive initiative we have there, and we are accessing. So then moving on to levy payments. This is our levy digital account that we pay into every month. Currently, as of 25th of March, we had transferred nearly 2.9 million into the fund. We had drawn down nearly 1.1 million for apprenticeship training. We are experiencing expiration of our funds on a monthly basis. At the moment, that totals just under 400,000 that we have of our funds that have expired. But as I say, we have used nearly 1.1 million for training programs within the council. There is a breakdown of those payments on Appendix 1, and it will show you there how many current apprentices we have on programme with all the different training providers that we access. Currently, we're working with 12 training providers there for numerous programmes. So that gives you a breakdown there of how that spend is made up. So moving on to 4.4, the Employment and Skills Board. As you are aware, I've brought this to the committee in the past. The Apprenticeship Board was disbanded in November, and there was a proposal to put together a Employment and Skills Board, which will be more inclusive and will work across different services to bring all of the incentives that I mentioned earlier into one board and make it more joined up working. At the moment, the Director of Learning and Inclusion and Skills and the newly appointed Director of Development and Growth are still in discussions around this. As I say, the Director of Development and Growth has been newly appointed, so that has sort of had an impact on the board being put in place. So they are currently in discussions and have committed to bring in an update to the committee by July. So hoping to bring that update to you by then. So and that's everything through on the paper today. If you have any questions at all.
Thank you, Tanya, and thanks very much for the work you and your team do on this. You know, it's great to show the kind of stuff that is going on under a very adverse climate. And thanks very much for keeping it going, keeping the light burning, so to speak. And it's so important that we're there up and ready to launch anything we can to attract young people, particularly at this time when there's so much uncertainty in the job market. And I know that young people have suffered tremendously in all sorts of ways through the effects of this pandemic. So thanks very much, Tanya, and your enthusiasm for your work comes over in the way you deliver the report. So thanks. Now, Balbir, have you a question?
Yeah, can I ask you one question? It's no question actually. Tanya, can you email me the details of this Kickstart scheme? So who to contact, how to contact, because there are quite a few people who are now, they can employ some people. and also I can do myself as well. I got a factory and also farm. So if you can email me the details, so let's see if we can help them.
Certainly, Councillor Sandhu. Yes, I will. I will email those after this meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Right, I did have a few questions. I think it was the first question I decided to note down because I know this, but I didn't as we went through. 4.2.1, which is the we're talking about the apprenticeship incentive payments, etc. Was it, or there was a whole issue of employers getting extra money to set this up, and I was just wondering, how do we ensure value for money? How do we ensure that that money is devoted entirely, maybe in a supportive way, to how stuff is delivered to apprentices, or is that audited by a government department?
So the Kickstart scheme, Chair, is that what you're referring to?
No, I think it was 4.21. I've made a note. It was the apprenticeship incentive payments.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the clarification. Yes, the £3,000 for the apprentice, the payments. Now that payment is paid in two instalments. You get the first payment after 90 days and the second payment after 365 days. And what the government have said there, that can be used for any form of support for that apprentice. So it could be that if there's an organisation who were looking to take an apprentice but were thinking they need support with salary, it can be given for their salary, or it can be given for further, it could be for travel expenses to support the person to get to work. It could be for uniform. So any sort of expense that may be a challenge or a barrier for that person to get into the workplace, that incentive can be used for. So it's sort of an enabling payment for the organisation or the actual candidate.
So, I mean, I suppose the other thing is on 4.1.1, I didn't write this down, but I think my question was kind of around the area of a lot of remote apprenticeship training going on, which is understandable. But if it's a hands-on type of apprenticeship, such as bricklaying, etc., there is theory, but it's getting those hands on those bricks and that mortar is going to turn someone into a skilled craftsman or woman. So hopefully there's thought given to that, and people are setting on apprentices with, very little actual delivery of skills. I mean, I used to work at St Benedict's School, and we used to have this system where the lads actually built walls or sections of walls, but they just used sand, wet sand, rather than mortar. So it could be disassembled, etc., and done again. But they needed that, They did the theory as well. You have to do all that theory about the bonds and all that and stuff about the kind of scientific side of the mix and temperatures for whether it's going to set or not, all that kind of stuff. But it comes down to hands-on. So I would imagine that would be more in Derby Home's domain, but we might have one or two apprentices on our books as a city council.
Yes, Chair. Well, I can give you an example of horticultural. At the moment, with our grounds maintenance teams, we've just taken on 3 horticultural apprenticeships. They are existing staff, workforce development, and we are working with Broomfield College. Now, obviously, Broomfield, that, again, prime example, that is going to be a practical course. It is a hands-on course, so they are going to be attending, and they are adhering to all of the social distancing guidelines. But yes, again, those sorts of courses are now coming back online.
Good.
And so, yes, most definitely, any practical course that needs that practical element, there will be face-to-face. Yes, definitely.
Well, good. And so we've got, I think the important thing is we've got reassurance on that from you, Tanya. So that's great. Yeah, thanks. I mean, that's part of our job, isn't it? So the other thing, I think it was only a typing or maybe a typo error on 4.42. And it says actions to carry forward, and then the 3 bullet points. And I think in the first bullet point, to refer to the Employment and Skills Board to investigate whether apprentices at the council should be paid PAYED. I think the spelling in English is PAID.
Excuse me, Chair.
It might be in a variant. It might be a variant, but I understand that it's paid PAID. So just correct that, because I mean, you know.
Yes, I will do, Chair.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. My mistake.
There's no breakdown in meaning or communication whatsoever. So it's not as if it's ambiguous or anything. So it's not really important, but you know, just thought I'd let you know.
Thank you, Chair.
Have members of the committee questions on this area? Right, so in that case then, looking at the recommendations, are we all happy with the recommendations at 2.1? In case you haven't got them in front of you with this carry on a toggling between screens. One is to note the update on the apprenticeship project to the current key areas of work. 2.2 is to note the associated budget announcements and government incentives. 2.3 is to note the levy payments made to date, the drawdown for training programmes that we have instigated and expired funds as of the 25th of March 2021. And recommendation 4 is to note the update on the creation of the new Employment and Skills Board. Are we all happy with those recommendations as tabled?
Yes, happy,
yes.
Chair.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, fine. Yeah, and thanks very much for all the work. As I say, Tanya, do let the team know that we do value the work you do, and it's really important that we do our utmost to lead on the issue of fostering apprenticeships in the city, so that people can, you know, we can say and we can give a good story about it. And as we've seen with Sat Balbia today, Councillor Sandhu, he's raring to go as well. So that's good. We need that now kind of from lots of employers around the city, and it will help us greatly in all sorts of ways as a city.
Thank you, Chair.
So, yeah, so we now move, when I get back to the agenda, we move to... Yeah, we move now to attendance management, Q3 2021, and it's an update. Again, so are you doing this one, Liz?
I am, thank you, Chair. Yep,
Right,
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I'd like to take the committee through what you will all recognise as one of our regular reports that we bring to Personnel Committee to provide an update, as the Chair's introduced, on attendance management for Q3, so the period October to December, the end of last year. So I'd like to just draw out some of the key areas, Chair, for the committee's attention, and obviously happy to pick up any questions at the end of the report. So if I can draw the committee's attention to the recommendation at 2.1, which is to note that the Council's performance on attendance management for Q3 was 2.84 days lost per full-time equivalent colleague against a target of 2.36 days lost for the same period. So we were over target for that Q3 period. But if I can perhaps draw out some of the key points around this from the supporting information, Chair, and draw your attention to 4.1 initially. So the top 3 reasons for absence in Q3 were still the same top 3 reasons for absence for Q2, which is stress and anxiety, coronavirus COVID-19 and other. And you can see that we were saying in Q3, stress and anxiety accounted for just over a quarter of all our absences. COVID-19 was just under 14.5%, and other absences that are categorised as other were just under 6% of the absences. But I think it's important for the committee to note that whilst the top 3 reasons for absence are still the same in Q3 as they were in Q2, there's been a slight change in the ranking, and at the end of the last year, COVID-19 coronavirus moved up to be the second highest reason for absence, which perhaps isn't surprising because it was the October to December period. But on a positive note, for the committee to note, while stress and anxiety remained the top reason for absence, there was a reduction in Q3 from Q2. So it was 28.66% in Q2, but down to 26.71 in Q3. And my apologies, Chair and committee members, there's a slight typing error there in that paragraph. It's definitely 26.71 as referred to earlier in 4.1. So with that encouraging point around stress and anxiety, again, it's just to highlight that managers continue across the council to offer support and advice to colleagues who are absent due to stress and anxiety. And committee will be aware, we've brought reports previously, that we've continued to make a significant effort during the pandemic to provide all of our colleagues, both those on the front line who keep our essential services running, and all those colleagues who've been working more remotely, keeping essential services running. We've made significant effort to make sure colleagues are provided with an extensive wellbeing offer. So again, Chair, if I could just draw out a few more of the figures around the absence, but also perhaps a couple of thematic points, which I hope are helpful for committee. If we actually look at the year-to-date period from April to December last year, so all 3 quarters together, we had a 7.9 days lost per FTE. We were above target because the target for the year-end forecast was 10.54 days against a target of 9.4 days. However, when we look at the year-to-date figure for April to December last year compared to the same period in 2019, we can see an improvement in our absence rates. So the figure of 7.9 days lost for the period April to December 2020 shows a decline in absence when compared to the same period, April to December 2019, where we lost 8.91 days. So the overall trend on absence compared to the same period in the previous year is showing that we're making progress and the trend is coming down. So I think that's an encouraging picture, and you can, I hope, be assured that managers continue to be accountable for managing absence and supporting attendance effectively in their teams. And again, Chair, if I can just draw out that if we look at that period, April to December 2020, obviously throughout that period, we felt the impact of the COVID pandemic, and the COVID-19 absences remained one of our top 3 reasons for absence. However, if we take out those COVID-19 related absences for that period, April to December, we would see that our absence levels were 7.05 FTE days lost, which would have been under the target for that period of 7.07. So if we exclude the COVID-19 absence rate for April to December, we would have achieved that period's target and in fact been under target. Obviously, this just takes us to the end of December. We'll bring a future report, Chair, and for other committee members to Personnel Committee when we've got the whole year to the end of March period data fully available. And obviously that starts to work through as we head through April. So we'll bring a future report to Personnel Committee on the whole year position. If I could just draw the committee's attention back to, I mentioned the significant effort on the wellbeing offer that we continue to make, rightly so, to all of our colleagues. And as I say, committee members will be aware we've brought reports previously on some of the work that we've been doing to support our colleagues' wellbeing. I can just perhaps draw out a couple of points that we've been working on since our last report to Personnel Committee. We keep continually refreshing, updating the offer that we can make, signposting colleagues to information and advice, other areas of support. And during Q3, we also hosted 4 virtual wellbeing sessions that were led by an external provider on a range of wellbeing subjects. All of our colleagues were encouraged to log on if they were able to, and to pick up some information, some advice, hopefully some tips, even if it was just a refresher on certain tips. And those wellbeing sessions were really well attended, and we had some very positive feedback around those. And we do constantly keep reminding our colleagues of what support is available to them, both within the council and externally, in terms of wellbeing. And we had a recent online colleague conference on the 23rd of March, so just at the end of last month. And that's, again, I think, Chair, another really good example of where colleagues can see and hear from senior leaders in the council about what's going on in the council, about staying connected to what's going on, particularly if you're working remotely. And that's part of that wellbeing and engagement point around feeling connected, particularly if you're working remotely. And it's an opportunity, as I say, for colleagues to find out about the direction of the council and what we're doing, and to keep people connected. And it was great to see that we had over 700 colleagues join the conference live streamed on YouTube. Another couple of points I'd just like to highlight for the committee is we do, as committee will be aware, we have a significant number of mental health first aiders across the council in a variety of departments, and those mental health first aiders have continued to provide support if they've been contacted during the pandemic. And we're just reviewing at the moment the impact of the network during the last 12 months, and looking at our options for the future and how we continue to offer mental health wellbeing to our colleagues. And committee members will be aware, obviously, in terms of the Derby Recovery Plan Action Plan, that the health and well-being of our colleagues is a key action for us to continue working on within the Council. And it supports our colleagues feeling empowered and supported at work. So I hope the committee can see that there has been, whilst there's been a slight increase in the Q3 absence, overall the trend is that the absence is coming down compared to the same period, April to December for 2019. And if we've excluded COVID-related absence, we would have been under target on attendance for the period April to December. And I hope you're also reassured by some of the continuing good work that we're doing in terms of our wellbeing offer. So, Chair, if I can just bring us back to the recommendation 2.1 to note our performance for Q3, 2.84 days lost against a target of 2.36 days within the context we've just discussed, and happy to pick up any comments or questions. Thank you, Chair. Chair, excuse me, I think you're just on mute there, Chair.
Thank you. Do councillor colleagues have any questions on that? I'd just like to ask myself, if that's all right. I'm commenting first that the strategy does seem to be working. There's evidence now that even through a very stormy period, the strategy is having effect. And I don't doubt that it's not linked to the whole thing you've got of support. It's the support and also that culture that I hope is filtering through, that it's all right to say you've got problems and that you need support, because you'll get it, and it's not going to be somebody you'll get a tick against your name and that kind of thing. It's that kind of culture. You know, people if they're not well, they don't think straight anyway sometimes. So it's good to have that, and they know that there's the resource. The fact that 700 people tuned into the colleague conference is really, really good, and shows that there was a need for it. You know, so hopefully that'll spread, and there'll be even a higher attendance at the next one. The only thing I would say is, and it's good to see that the stress and anxiety percentage has gone down, but it still represents just over a quarter of reasons for absences. I read in The Guardian, but I can't remember the exact context of it, but there was a survey of people, and I think it may be a union that represents largely people who work from home on a day-to-day basis, COVID or no COVID, so we work remotely. And they said that people in that union who responded to the survey, there was an increase in their stress and anxiety during that period. And I think ages ago, I might have said, you know, the fact that people are working at home may be more stressful for some people than coming into a work environment with their stress and anxiety. And this appears to be the case. You know, some people, maybe it's the fact that they are just working on their own. There is no social contact, not physical anyway, leads to more anxiety and more stress. And the other issue was that some people were working longer, that they felt they were under some pressure to work longer than their contracted hours. Now, I'm sure there are rules about that which, you know, people observe, because that's part of the culture about supporting an employee. Clearly, there'll be times when there's pinch points. If somebody's working in finance and the budget's coming up, they may have to put in a few more hours then than they might do at the beginning of the financial year. But that would always be within reason, you know, otherwise you get burnout and all sorts of things. So I'm sure you're aware of those things, but that's the kind of things that's going on in the wider picture from what I've seen in The Guardian.
Yeah, thank you for those comments, Chair, and I think they're, you know, very helpful, and certainly, as you say, aspects that we're aware of in the broader theme, not necessarily that specific article, but those points that you've drawn out, and certainly throughout, I hope committee can be reassured that throughout the pandemic we have continued to work with management colleagues around perhaps your first point, Chair, about for some people it's more challenging working from home because they're not familiar with it, or perhaps their domestic circumstances are such that it's taken a bit of different getting used to, etc. And managers have been really encouraged, and I can think of some, some good examples of managers who have taken up that encouragement to really stay connected with their team members. And you might remember, Chair, that we brought some of the survey results from some of our wellbeing surveys to previous committees, where we've talked about particularly people working remotely. Did they still feel connected with their teams, with their managers, knowing what was going on? And it's about those quality individual conversations, because, as you say, Chair, one person's experience of perhaps working remotely might be different to another team member. So our managers, I would say, are very conscious of the need to sort of have those regular check-ins and be talking with colleagues on an individual basis about their circumstances. And also the point about working time, as you say, Chair, yes, obviously there's legislation in place around the working time regulations, etc. And the Council has always encouraged and has a number of work-life balance policies which have been in place before the pandemic. But again, particularly for colleagues both on the front line and working remotely, throughout the pandemic, there have been obviously some peaks of activity because of the nature of the rapid response, but also, again, as part of our wider wellbeing support to colleagues, it's very much around managers continuing to check in with colleagues to ensure that their workloads are reasonable, and that, yes, there might be peaks at certain times, but again, the flexibility of how we balance that. So thank you for flagging that, Chair. And again, they are areas that we continue to, to work on and ensure that we're providing good support to our colleagues.
Good, and I'm glad I asked the question, because it does give you a chance to provide us reassurance on that. And we are a public meeting, so it's good that that message is getting out. So I have no further questions. Did anyone else want to ask any questions? Ross or Balbir?
No, it's a very comprehensive report. No questions from me, thank you.
Right, and the same for you, Balbir? Yep. Okay. Right, so we have just one recommendation, 2.1. Liz read it out. I'm assuming we're all totally happy with that, and we've no further recommendations to make. Are we happy with that, councillors?
Yes, happy.
Yeah. Good, thank you. Right, so I think we're almost at the point where we'll be concluding when I can find the agenda again. Yes, we've covered all the items. All I'd just like to say, really, as kind of concluding remarks, is thanks very much to Liz and all the HR team, all our colleagues, for the support we've had in the meetings. Thanks also to the legal team, which have been invaluable in terms of keeping us on the right track on occasions, and clarifying legal questions, and obviously to all our support team in democratic services, and in particular Dom for his work in getting agendas together, etc., and setting up meeting dates and all the rest, and pre-meets. So thanks very much to everyone who's been involved, and thanks very much to the councillors present and the councillors in absentia for the work we've done together. And I think we've worked well as a team, and I've been grateful for your support. And with that, I think we'll conclude the meeting. Thanks very much, everyone. Cheerio.
Thank you, Chair.
Bye-bye.